Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. So today is Thursday, and my coworker got into a wreck this morning. She's not coming to work, and my boss is off today, so I'm just not going in today. So it's all good. So yesterday when I got off work, I wasn't feeling too good, so I went by the storage and I just grabbed the jack and the air tank because I need to air up this tire, or at least pull this tire off and put this other wheel and tire on there. It's just a steely like that one. So I need to get this wheel and tire onto the back so that way it'll be aired up. And I'm probably going to take this tire, since it's still a good tire, it just doesn't seat to the bead on the rim. So I'm going to go take this tire and have it put on the front wheel where it's got the plug in it, because it's starting to shake. And so I think the tire's just going bad. Maybe it's starting to separate. I'm not for sure, but definitely need to get something done with that. So I'm going to grab the jack. I'm going to jack this thing up, get this wheel off, get the steely on, make sure it's aired up, put it back on the ground. And my buddy Tommy, in his Impala, he was asking about the fuel pump and the fuel tank. And so I told him I have this whole tank and pump assembly and everything. It's all good. It works. So I'm going to end up sometime, we're going to drop the tank out of this, which needs to happen anyways to get everything off of it. And then I need to make some more room. I don't know where all this stuff's going to go, but I need to get these seats out of here and all the rest of this stuff. And the whole trunk is still packed full of boxes. So I need to get all this stuff cleaned out of this car so David can start pulling the dash and the steering column and the headliner and the carpet and any of the other stuff that he wants. I know he wants the windshield. He'll probably keep the windows just because they're good. So this car is going to end up getting stripped all the way down completely. And hopefully everything goes pretty well. So I'm going to get the jack and everything out and get this thing jacked up and get the wheel off. And I'll give you guys another update. Alright y'all, so I got the jack out, got the car jacked up, took the wheel off, went to go make sure this other tire was all the way aired up, and it's flat, not all the way aired up. And so I got out the air compressor, went to plug it in, and we heard a big boom out here. It sounded like a gunshot. Evidently it was a transformer, because now nobody around here has power. The neighbor down there just backed out and ripped his bumper off. That sucks. I don't even have the zip ties with me, or I'd take him some zip ties. But yeah, so I was trying to run the air compressor off the cigarette lighter with the power adapter, and it got up to like 10 or 12 pounds and then it wouldn't work no more. So I put a little bit of air in the tire, but I'm pretty sure it's not enough to keep it off the ground. And then also, my fitting right here on the compressor is leaking. So, like, I didn't even get to put any more air in the tire. It already went down to 0. It was leaking out in here. I have to hold this a certain way for it to stop. So I'm going to have to replace this whole fitting here with another one of these. But shouldn't be too bad. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to head over to the storage here pretty quick so I can go get this thing, get the other fittings and swap this out and get this thing working correctly, and so I can actually plug it in and fill it up with air. And I'll just have to take that tire over and have that tire pulled off and put it on my other rim, and should be good to go. So y'all stay tuned. I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Hey YouTube. Alright, so power finally came back on about 10 minutes ago. So over the last couple hours, we've been waiting for the electric company. They had to replace like 3 different transformers. They've been all over the neighborhood. So while I've been waiting, I was able to get that wheel and tire off, but it was super flat, and so I just bolted that other wheel and tire on. I just got it aired up. I went ahead and aired up all the other tires. I checked all the tire pressures on the 07, and I just aired up all the tire pressures on the 06 a couple days ago whenever I moved to the Grand Am. So all the tire pressures are good now. This one, I don't know if I'm going to use this tire. I'm pretty sure the rim is the problem, why it keeps leaking, but I'm not 100% for sure. It was a good tire, so I don't know what the deal is, but it's also pretty bald. It's already on the wear bars, so I'm not even going to waste my time with having it put on. I'll just rock that one for now and deal with the shaking. On the 07, so this morning she started up, and I went to the car wash, went and filled her up with gas. Everything was going well, and then I went and stopped by David's on the way home because he just lives a couple streets over. And I stopped by there and turned it off, and then it was just crank, and wouldn't start. And I got out and I messed with this wire harness for the ICM, and it plugs in here and then goes down. There's a ground right here on the coil pack bracket, and then it goes down to the crank sensor and over to the cam sensor. So I think there's a short somewhere in this harness, or maybe this ground isn't getting a good enough ground, because like it'll crank and I'll get out and I'll mess with this harness and then it'll start. So I don't know if it's just one of these wires, or maybe something's frayed in this harness. So I'm going to let this cool down for a little while, because it is still a little warm because I did go drive it. And yeah, I'm going to let this cool off and probably till later on in the day. But eventually I'm going to end up just pulling this harness off completely and go from there. And then, yeah, I don't know. The 06s seems to be doing good, so maybe I'll just head over to the storage and go see if I can make some progress on the Grand Am. And I want to pull the engine off the stand and get the clutch bolted onto it. And I need to put the car on jack stands and drop the subframe back out. So I've got quite a bit of stuff I need to get done on it. So I'm probably going to lock this up, lock the house up, put the air compressor back in the trunk, get all my batteries and put them back in the trunk, and head over to the storage in the 06 and go try to make some progress on the Grand Am. So y'all stay tuned. I'll give you guys another update once I make it over to the storage. Alright, YouTube, well, I made it over here to the storage. I started getting everything out. So I just gotta roll this cart of tools out, and then I'm gonna grab the jack her up, get the front on jack stands, jack up the rear, get the rear on jack stands, and start getting her taken back apart. So I need to get her up on jack stands, and I need to get at least get the front wheels off and start dropping the subframe back out of the car, which I know that kind of sucks, because I just spent that, like 4 hours over there a few days ago putting it all back together just to move her over here. But that's part of the process sometimes. So I need to get her up on jack stands and get the subframe dropped out. And once I get the subframe dropped out, I can slide it out from under the car, and then I'll be able to pull the engine off of the stand, get the clutch and everything bolted on. I want to mate it up to the trans, see how it's going to fit, make sure everything's good to go there. And then I want to take those other set of headers, which I have right here. And it's mainly just the rear one that I'm concerned about, but I want to take this and kind of start getting it onto the engine and see how it's going to fit back there in that exhaust tunnel. So there's not a whole lot of room in there, so I'm really hoping that these work and that they fit, but I guess we'll find out once I get there. So I'm gonna get to work and start jacking her up and getting her on stands and taking her apart, and I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Alright you guys, so I've done a little bit. Just had to tighten the hood down, get the bolts in, kind of line it up. That way I don't have to pull it off and set it over here. I don't want it to get damaged in any way. But so I was looking, whenever I put the subframe and the transmission in the other day, there was a bracket right down here that I had to cut off that was for the automatic. And it was for that mount that bolts onto the side of the 4245E right here. And so I had to cut that out. And right now, I put it in the video when I put it back in, but you can see right here, it is actually touching the transmission, and it is making the transmission turn back just a little bit. Like this bolt up here is pretty flush. That's my front mount that I made. And then the rear one, it's like 3/4 of an inch away, and I can't suck it in any further. It's the bolt's all the way up against the bracket. It just, the transmission has to come back this way for that to be flush, and it can't because it's hitting that. So once I drop this back out, I'm gonna have to trim that bracket up some more as well, which isn't a big deal. This is all little stuff, just part of doing the swap. So but man, it's very time consuming. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to work now, get this thing up on jack stands, get the wheels off, start dropping this thing out, and then I'll give you guys another update. Y'all, so I've made some more progress. I've got car up on 4 jack stands, got the front wheels off. I'm pretty sure I need to get the front a little bit higher up, so I'm probably gonna have to go over to the old Grand Am storage and grab that long metal beam just like this, and then that way I used the other day to stretch across the bottom of the subframe. That let me lift it about 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher. So right now the rear is lifted up a little bit higher than the front. I don't know why or how, but that's the jack maxed out. That's as high as I could get it. So I'm gonna run over to the other storage and grab that bar. That way I can lift the front up a little bit higher. But man, it got pretty hot in here, so I had to hook up the fan and get the fan going, moving some air around. Had to charge up some batteries over here. So I've got the lights off because, man, it's already hot in here. But man, overall she's doing pretty good. So I guess y'all stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys updated once I go get that other bar. Alright y'all, so I've been working on her for a good hour. I've got a subframe dropped back out. I've got both struts disconnected, got the steering linkage disconnected, got the shifter cables undone, and that's really all that was really connected. So got this brake line snaked out of the way of all the lines, got the AC line over there. It sits underneath the subframe, so you gotta put it above the subframe there. Other than that, everything went awesome. I had to use a cherry picker, and I just wrapped a chain around the subframe over there, and then ran it up to the hook, and then ran it down here, and I bolted the chain right here onto that factory mount for the Cavalier. And yeah, that worked awesome. I just held the subframe up in place, zipped all the bolts out with the impact, and then just let the cherry picker down, and it set the rear down first. And then I had to use a couple 2x4s and that piece of angle iron to set it on, because the ram here was hitting the radiator support. So I had to lift it up a little bit, but everything's awesome now. So then I had to take the hook and hook on here to the radiator support so I can actually lift the car up high enough, because as I showed earlier, my jack stands were not high enough, and I didn't have any more 2x4s to put in here. So I found some rotors, some old junk rotors, and just set the jack stands on the rotors to give it that extra 1.5 inches or so, and it kind of leveled out the car, but it's just definitely, it's not high enough to get the transmission and everything out from under the car, especially on the rolly cart. So yeah, the car's got to go a lot higher, and then once I get it up higher, I've got to figure out a way to keep it up that high so I can actually roll this thing out. So I might have to pull the front bumper back off, I don't know yet, but I'm going to keep working on her and try to get this subframe and everything out from under the car, because I really want to test fit the engine with that rear header on it, just to see if it's going to go down, like where it's going to sit at, because I have the picture where this was bolted in before, and it's like right there at this very, like where it curves in here, that mount and heat shield sits right in front of it, right in front of where that O2 plug is. So if I can get the engine bolted on here and that rear header goes like right next to that heat shield, then I'll be golden. But if it's like sits off to the side or whatever, or it might stick up too high and it might hit the bottom of the car there, I'm not for sure. So I mean, I did compare it to the 98 parts car, and they look pretty damn similar. Where the bell housing sits and where that tunnel is, they look about the same, but and it's really hard to tell. So I'm just going to have to bolt the engine to it and bolt the rear header on and see if it fits. So I'm going to keep working on trying to get this thing out from under here, and then I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Alright you guys, so I've been working on this thing. Finally got everything out. It was a pain in the ass. I could not find anything to set the car on the jack stands and have it be high enough to pull this thing out. Like right now, it's high enough, but I was still like 6 inches short. I need some way taller jack stands. So I don't know, maybe I'm gonna have to borrow my neighbor's jack stands, because he has some actually really tall ones, and they go a lot taller than any of mine. So maybe that's what I need, and put a 2x4 or something onto those, and it can hold it up high enough. But I was able to take the cart and kind of wheel it sideways and just pull everything out the wheel well right there, and then kind of finagle it to get this brake around this post or this beam. But I kind of got it out, and it's out. So now my only problem is, once I bolt the engine on, it's not going to go back over there, because like the front bumper right here on the side was like almost touching. Like I scratched it a little bit. It wasn't trying to, but it is what it is. But yeah, so once I get the engine bolted on there, it's not going to go back through that way. It's going to have to go under the front. So I'm going to have to get this thing higher somehow. I don't know how, but it's going to have to happen. So I'm going to keep working on it and see if I can figure something out so that I can get this thing together and make this work. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys updated once I figure out what the fuck I'm going to do with this thing. Alright y'all, so I've been working on this thing for a while now. As you can tell, it's dark. So it's about 8:45 or so p.m. So what I ended up having to do was I had to run an extension cord to the welder, and I had to take my Sawzall and that long beam I went and got from the other storage, and I had to cut it up into like 6-inch long pieces and make some little brackets and weld them together. And I had to do that for both sides. And at first, I hadn't even welded them together. I just set the brackets, you know, the metal on there, set it up, and set the cherry picker down and let the car set on it. And I mean, it seems pretty solid, but I was like, man, if I barely bump that, it's gonna fall. So I just welded them together and gave them a couple tacks to the actual jack stand, so there's no way the pieces can slide off the jack stand, and there's no way that the piece can slide off of the piece. So I feel a lot better about it. And then just to be sure, I went ahead and just slid that table under there, so if something does happen and it falls, it's going to fall on that little table. And you know, that's not much, but it's something. I would rather it fall on that little table and, you know, the table catch it than the car fall on the ground. So, but now I've got the cherry picker completely disconnected from the car, and I was able to move it out of the way and just roll this right out. So now I have the subframe with the transmission on the rolly cart. It's out of the storage, and I have about an hour and a half or so until I have to leave. So I don't know, I guess I'm gonna try to get this engine off the stand and get the clutch bolted on and try to mate it up to the transmission, and at least get the engine sitting on the subframe on the rolly cart and try to go from there. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll give you guys another update just as soon as I make some more progress. Alright, you guys, so I was able to get the cherry picker and pull the engine off of the stand. I already got the bracket unbolted off of it. Now I've got the clutch, so I just threw the clutch up there. I'm about to get the pressure plate set up there. I've got all the flywheel to pressure plate bolts right here, and I have the red Loctite. So I'm about to get this installed on here, get it all torqued down. I believe it's like 32 foot-pounds, but I'll have to look it up to double check. And then once it's all nice and tight, I can pull the center ring out, and she should be good to mate up to that F23 5-speed over there. So I'm gonna get this on here, and then I'll give you guys another update before I set it down onto the subframe with the transmission. Alright, y'all, so I just got the clutch and pressure plate all bolted down and red Loctited all 6 of the bolts. I still have to torque them down, but they are all snug, and look, nice and centered. So all I got to do is torque these down, and then I'm good to go ahead and bolt it up onto the F23. So I'm going to keep working on this and grab the torque wrench, and I'm also going to have to grab my breaker bar and one of these, the 24. Is that one it? Yep. Because I'm going to have to hold the crank still to keep it from turning over while I go to crank it, or torque it. So I'm going to grab the torque wrench and a breaker bar, and I'll give you guys another update once I get these all torqued down. Alright, y'all, it seems like forever and a lot of finagling, but I finally got it. I had it in neutral, so I had to throw it in gear and turn the radiator, and that turned it on the inside. So now that it's in gear, if I was to take the crank pulley with a socket and a ratchet and spin it, it should spin the wheels. So, but man, it's all, well, yeah, since the clutch isn't compressed, so it should all be engaged. But man, that's a shit ton of progress today. So I guess now I'm just gonna start putting everything up, because it's already 10:15 and my storage closes in about 45 minutes, and I need to be out of here by 11, and I still got to pick everything up, and I got to get this whole fucking engine and subframe and everything in here, and along with the cherry picker and all the tools and the headers. I still would like to try to at least bolt on that rear header, or just set it up here to see how it's going to sit, and see if it's going to sit down through here or not. I really don't know. Here, let's just see. Let's just pop these off. Move all this stuff. I still need to like take a lot of this harness back off. But I just want to see a roundabout. Oh, it's gonna hit. Damn. It looks like the trans mount is gonna be right in the way. Unless I run like a turbo rear. Man, I don't even know how I would. Or if I just run power logs, ZZP power logs. I don't know. I'll have to grab a factory manifold and kind of test it up there. I mean, I really hope these fit, but I don't know. It's really not looking like it. It looks like this part here fits. It's just the crossover is what the problem is. So, I don't know. I'm going to just call it for tonight and start picking everything up, and then I will give you guys another update before I go home. Alright, you guys, so it was a pain in the ass, but it's back in here. Barely fits back here, but she's in. So, and the door will close. The door closes here, so I got a good inch of clearance. So now I got to get everything else packed back in here. Okay, now I have to get everything else packed back in here, down the side. And just get all the tools and everything picked up, and should be good to go. So I'm gonna start getting everything else all picked up and cleaned up and tucked away back in here, and throw some batteries on the charger while I'm picking everything up, and then I'll give you guys another update. So y'all stay tuned. Alright, you guys, so I've got everything back in here. And got the power unplugged, cords there. So let's and there we go. And just like that. She locked up. So get out of here and go home, go take a shower, and I'll probably be back over here tomorrow. I'm not for sure yet, so it's going to be it for today's video though. So like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for the next one, and I'll catch you guys later.